Good morning then, Year 5, and welcome to today's science lesson. So obviously it was World Book Day yesterday, so we had our topic lesson then instead of science. So of course we have our science lesson then today. Now what we were looking at last week, if you can remember, is we were looking at plants and how they reproduce. And we looked at how plants reproduce sexually, because remember you've got sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, which we'll recap in a second. Now, last week we looked at plants reproducing sexually, and we can remember that was because the pollen from the plants, the male sex cell, the male gamete from the plant, so the pollen gets blown around by the wind or picked up by an insect and then taken to another flower where it will go into the ovules of the plant and produce a seed, which will then drop into the ground and create a new flower. Okay, so that's how plants reproduce sexually. However, plants can also reproduce asexually. Okay, so what we're going to do is have a quick recap about sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, just so we can remember what they both mean, and then we'll go further into asexual reproduction in plants. So some of the statements describe sexual reproduction and some of them describe asexual reproduction. Can you decide which are which? So, sexual reproduction. So we've got offspring are similar to their parents but not identical. Okay, of course that is sexual reproduction. That's just similar to like humans, for example. Okay, you are very similar to your parents but you're not identical. Okay, and humans do sexual reproduction. Requires just one parent. Of course that is asexual reproduction. Okay, remember you've got two parents. Okay, so that is obviously sexual reproduction. So that already tells you there needs two parents is that one. And then produces identical offspring. We know is asexual reproduction. Okay, so producing identical offspring to the parent. So it means that you look identical to your parent, basically. So to do this is almost just like replicating. They just appear and they're identical to what they were before, like almost carbon copies. Okay. Exactly like cloning each other. That kind of thing is asexual reproduction. Okay, so that will hopefully give you a quick recap, and now we'll have a look at the asexual reproduction in plants then. So some plants use sexual reproduction to make seeds which grow to make new plants. That's what we looked at last week. These plants need pollen containing the male gamete or sex cell from one flower to fuse with the ovule, the female gamete of another flower, which makes a seed. Okay, it's exactly what we did last week. However, some plants use asexual reproduction to make new plants. Unlike sexual reproduction, asexual reproduction only needs one new parent plant to make new plants. Because there is only one parent plant, there is no fusion of gametes. Okay, so you don't have a female sex cell and a male sex cell because there is only one parent. Okay, so there's no fusion of gametes, no fusion of sex cells, and no mixing of genetic information. The new plants are identical to the parent plant. They are clones. Okay, they are literally clones of their parents. Plants that use asexual reproduction then, so other plants produce side branches or runners with new plantlets on. The roots of each plantlet grow down into the soil, and the plantlet will grow to form new plants which are identical to the parent. Spider plants and strawberries are examples of plants that produce this way. Daffodil bulbs store energy underground. Once the daffodil plant has died back, the bulb develops side shoots that will then grow into new daffodils for next year. So all of this is all occurring underground, this asexual reproduction. Potato plants grow tubers underground during the spring and summer. These tubers will grow into new plants the following spring if they are left undisturbed. Okay, so the tubers come out from the roots here and create a new plant that is identical to the one that's been made before. Some plants develop bulbs or tubes underground. These bulbs or tubes will develop into new plants for the following year. The new plants will be genetically identical to the parent plant, so it's like a clone. Daffodils and potatoes are examples of plants that reproduce this way. Strawberry plants send out runners, so these little things here, these are little runners that come from the bottom. They're kind of like extra stems that come out long and small with small plantlets on, so these are like these little leaves. These will then grow into a new strawberry plant. And you have spider plants, which is this here, send out branches with baby plantlets on. So these are these little small ones again here, with the baby plantlets on the bottom. Each plantlet then will grow into a new plant. Okay, so it's as simple as that. And these will all be clones, and they will be identical to the parent. Okay, so all these ones that begin growing up again on the strawberry plant and the spider plant, they will be identical to the plant that they've come from. So now we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of asexual and sexual reproduction. Okay, and this is going to be your task in today's lesson. So there are advantages and disadvantages to plants using sexual or asexual reproduction. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Have a look at the statements on your advantages and disadvantages activity sheet. Can you make each statement to show whether it is an advantage or disadvantage of each type of reproduction? Okay, so on your Google document page, you will have a table and it will say sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, and it will say advantages or disadvantages. Okay, and there is also at the bottom a list of statements. Now I've just put some of the statements here. Now the statements are color coded, okay, so I've made it a little bit easier for you. So all the statements that are written in blue are talking about sexual reproduction, and all the ones that are in red are talking about asexual reproduction. You just need to decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So let's have a look. We'll have a look at the first one together. So the species can change over time to adapt to new environments and habitats. Okay, so is that a good thing that the plants can adapt to new environments and habitats, or is it bad? Okay, of course it's good. Okay, it's good that it can adapt to different places. Okay, so it can grow in a lot of different places. That's a positive of sexual reproduction. You've got the population can be increased quickly when we're talking about asexual reproduction. Okay, that's good. It's good that we can increase it quickly. Reproduction is not possible for an isolated plant. Okay, so is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Of course, that's a bad thing. Okay, the fact that, say, if you have a plant that only takes place in sexual reproduction, so it needs another mate, it needs two parents. If you've got one plant on its own and it needs somebody else to be with, it can't grow legs and run along and find another plant, okay, because plants obviously don't work like that. They're not like humans and animals. Okay, so if you've got a plant that can only take part in sexual reproduction, so it needs another mate, then if it's on its own, it won't be able to do this. So it's a bad thing, it's a disadvantage. And for the last one then, good features of the parent plant will always be passed on. Okay, so I'll let you have a go at that one as well. Is it good that the good features of the parent plant get passed on? Seems pretty self-explanatory to me. So have a go at that. These are 4 of your statements. You've got 4 more as well on your Google document page, and all you need to do is just either copy and paste them or rewrite them into the table in the correct places. Okay, thank you very much then, Year 5. Get on with that and enjoy the rest of your day.